Picture this. You're walking into Sam's Club for your weekly grocery run when suddenly your phone rings. It's the President of the United States calling to tell you your parents are coming home from federal prison today. That's exactly what happened to Savannah Chrisley on Tuesday, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why this presidential pardon is sending shockwaves through both the entertainment world and the political landscape. What started as a reality TV empire built on Southern charm and family values has become one of the most controversial pardon stories of Trump's presidency. And trust me, the details will blow your mind. So, Todd and Julie Chrisley went from living their best life on camera to wearing orange jumpsuits behind bars. But here's where it gets interesting. Trump just wiped their slate completely clean with full presidential pardons. Now, before you click away thinking this is just another celebrity story, stick with me because this case exposes something much bigger about power, politics, and the justice system that affects all of us. Let's rewind to understand how we got here. The Chrisleys were reality TV royalty, flaunting their luxurious lifestyle on Chrisley Knows best. We're talking designer clothes, expensive cars, massive real estate deals, and extravagant vacations. They were living the American dream on steroids, and millions of viewers tuned in every week to watch their perfectly chaotic family dynamics. But here's the thing about reality TV. Sometimes the reality behind the cameras is very different from what we see on screen. Federal prosecutors discovered that the Chrisleys' lavish lifestyle wasn't just funded by TV money and legitimate business ventures. They were allegedly running an elaborate fraud scheme that would make your head spin. Now, pay attention to this because it's crucial to understanding why this pardon is so controversial. Prosecutors claimed that before the Chrisleys became household names, they were submitting fake documents to banks in the Atlanta area to secure fraudulent loans worth over $30 million. That's not a typo, $30 million. The scheme allegedly worked like this. They'd live extravagantly beyond their means. Then when bills came due, they'd take out new fraudulent loans to pay off the old ones. It was like a house of cards built on lies and forged paperwork. When Todd Chrisley eventually declared bankruptcy, prosecutors say he walked away from over $20 million in unpaid loans, leaving banks holding the bag. But wait, it gets worse. The government also accused them of tax evasion, essentially hiding their income from the IRS while continuing to spend money like it was going out of style. We're talking about a level of financial deception that most people can't even imagine. In 2022, a federal jury looked at all the evidence and found both Todd and Julie Chrisley guilty on multiple counts of conspiracy to defraud banks and tax evasion. The sentences were brutal. Todd got 12 years in federal prison, Julie got 7 years, and together they owed nearly $18 million in restitution. Now here's where the story takes a dramatic turn that reads like a political thriller. Fast forward to 2024, and Savannah Chrisley is standing on stage at the Republican National Convention. She's not there as a reality TV star, she's there as a daughter fighting for her parents' freedom. And she's using language. That sounds remarkably similar to Trump's own rhetoric about the justice system. Savannah claimed her parents were persecuted by rogue prosecutors and targeted because of their conservative beliefs and high profile. She even shared a quote that sent chills through the audience, saying prosecutors called her family the Trumps of the South, in what she described as an insult that she now wears as a badge of honor. This is where the story becomes about more than just one family's legal troubles. It's about the intersection of celebrity, politics, and justice in America. Think about it. Here's a family that built their brand on traditional conservative values. And now they're claiming the justice system itself is weaponized against conservatives. Trump clearly bought into this narrative. When he called Savannah Chrisley personally while she was walking into Sam's Club, he promised her parents would be free and clean. By Tuesday afternoon, he made good on that promise with full presidential pardons. The family's attorney, Alex Little, didn't hold back in his statement. He claimed the pardon corrects a deep injustice and argued that Todd and Julie were targeted because of their conservative values and high profile. He went further, alleging their prosecution was tainted by constitutional violations and political bias. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. It's part of a much larger pattern. Trump isn't just pardoning the Chrisleys. He's been handing out pardons like candy to high-profile friends, supporters, donors, and former staffers. We're talking about Scott Jenkins, a former Virginia sheriff convicted of fraud and bribery. Paul Walchak, a Florida healthcare executive imprisoned on tax charges whose mother was involved in exposing Ashley Biden's diary. Michelle Fiore, a Nevada Republican who allegedly pocketed money meant for a statue honoring a slain police officer and used it for personal expenses, including plastic surgery. Do you see the pattern here? Each of these cases involves people connected to Trump's political orbit, and each involves serious financial crimes. The question that should make every American think twice is this: does wealth and political connection determine who gets justice and who gets mercy in our country? Savannah Chrisley's emotional reaction tells us everything about what this means to the family. She broke down on social media, saying she'd shed so many tears and still couldn't believe it was real. Her brother Chase shared photos wearing Trump hats, thanking the president. These are real people whose lives have been turned upside down, and regardless of your political views, you have to feel something for children watching their parents go to prison. But here's the uncomfortable truth we need to face. The federal jury that convicted the Chrisleys looked at evidence for weeks. They heard testimony, examined documents, and concluded beyond a reasonable doubt that serious crimes were committed. Banks lost millions of dollars. The tax system was defrauded. These aren't victimless crimes. They affect all of us because when people don't pay their fair share or commit fraud, honest taxpayers and bank customers ultimately pay the price. The appeals court upheld most of the convictions, though they did find an error in Julie Chrisley's sentencing calculation. This suggests the legal process was working, with checks and balances in place to correct mistakes. So, when we see these convictions overturned not by courts but by presidential pardon, we have to ask ourselves what message that sends about accountability and the rule of law. What makes this story particularly fascinating is how it reflects our current political moment. The Chrisleys' case has become a symbol for people who believe the justice system is weaponized against conservatives. Their supporters see them as victims of political persecution. Their critics see them as wealthy criminals who use their connections to escape consequences. The truth is probably more complex than either narrative suggests. The justice system isn't perfect, and there are legitimate concerns about prosecutorial, overreach, and political bias. But there's also a dangerous precedent when serious financial crimes are dismissed as political persecution, especially when the pardons seem to flow primarily to people with the right political connections or enough money to hire the right lawyers. Here's what should concern all of us. If we normalize the idea that wealthy, well-connected people can escape consequences for serious crimes by claiming political persecution, what does that mean for equal justice under law? What does it mean for the banks that were allegedly defrauded, or the taxpayers whose system was allegedly cheated? The Chrisley family is celebrating tonight, and honestly, who can blame them? They're getting their parents back, their family is being reunited, and they're free to rebuild their lives. That's genuinely something to celebrate if you care about this family as human beings. But the bigger questions this case raises aren't going away. We're living in an era where the line between politics and justice is increasingly blurred, where claims of persecution and bias are thrown around so frequently that we're losing sight of when they're legitimate and when they're convenient excuses. The Chrisley case forces us to confront these uncomfortable realities about power, privilege, and accountability in America. Whether you see this as justice finally being served or as wealthy criminals escaping consequences depends largely on your political perspective. But maybe that's exactly the problem. Maybe justice shouldn't depend on political perspective at all. Maybe the real story here isn't about the Chrisleys specifically, but about what their case reveals about the state of our institutions and our democracy. As this family celebrates their reunion and attempts to rebuild their lives, the rest of us are left to grapple with what this means for the country we all share. The Chrisleys are free, but the questions their case raises about equal justice, political influence, and the rule of law will continue to challenge us long after the cameras. Stop rolling on this real-life drama that proved truth really can be stranger than fiction.